Transportation cost is more than half of the total logistics cost in South Africa, which is essentially a result of the fact that we are geographically challenged. Our biggest market is very far from the coast. Therefore, products have to move far between either the coast or the market, or even where it's produced locally. The second factor is that in that environment where we have long distance transport, we have a very poorly maintained and operated rail system, which is a legacy of many, many decades, and that is being rectified through the investments. But the reality today still is that there's far too little of non-export commodities that is making use of rail. So that drives up transportation cost, and it is a factor that makes our economy less efficient than those that we compete with. Our ports remain congested in some cases, but again, the significant investments from Transnet should rectify that. We're seeing all the plans in the different places, and they prioritize that investment. So I think in the areas that they need to be. And then we also, as I said earlier, in terms of Africa, we need to stop using southern African ports for volumes that end up in places like Zambia, which could much easier be serviced from other ports. Now, as a South African, you could say, but surely you don't advocate that. The reality is that that's part of our current congestion. We need to make sure that the right products end up on rail. I think we're fully supportive of the Transnet strategy to invest in everything from infrastructure to rolling stock to the systems to manage that. We are apprehensive about the scale and aspiration, and we're looking forward to it succeeding. We must make sure that, as I said, the right things end up on rail, containerized product or bulk commodities. And there's a great opportunity for companies like ourselves to work with Transnet to deliver that solution to industry. I think what we're seeing in Mozambique is interesting, that there are major deposits of ore that are being explored by big international companies, the Vales of the world, that end up having to build their own infrastructure. So it's not just about building a mine or building the mine infrastructure, but it's actually about building a railway from the Tet inland region of Mozambique right through to one of the harbors. And there's many of those projects that's happening in Africa where industry is developing infrastructure. Fundamentally, that's the wrong approach. Fundamentally, government should be providing infrastructure. But that hasn't happened. In terms of foreign direct investment, that's probably the most important thing that could happen to Africa, is the creation of ports, rail, road infrastructure. Africa has so much potential, and there's so much of that happening. I think maybe the challenge is also to focus and to hone that investment. It may end up that there's too many things happening in too many places. We typically are not a key player in infrastructure development, so we're not a project logistics company to that largest extent. So we're not involved in building roads. We're very involved in creating demand for those roads. So to make sure that volume actually end up flowing there through also changing typically sea freight. So that's exciting, but there's immense development and still immense challenges. Some of the harbors, for instance, in Luanda, in Angola, is a serious constraint for the entire economy.